Hannah has a remarkable trait. Her character is that of the believer in all ages. Hannah means grace. But before answering to her name, she represents the flesh incapable of bearing fruit for God. The Word of God teaches us that the natural man has two characteristics: wickedness and incapacity, and the law has no other purpose than to convince us of this. But it is easier to confess that we are guilty than to admit our incapacity, for to admit the powerlessness of our flesh is deeply humiliating. Hannah felt this, but her trial was not limited to this alone. Like Sarah of old, she was the object of the hatred and disdain of the wife according to the flesh. This wife was prospering fully, for Peninnah had children when Hannah had none. But the hatred of the first wife was all the greater, as the love of their husband turned toward Hannah, the wife who was miserable and barren. Poor Hannah was full of bitterness and wept abundantly. One resource remained to her: to present her affliction before the Lord. Only God's heart could give her an answer in grace. Therefore, she presents herself before him at Shiloh. A new trial awaits her there. She encounters the lack of intelligence in the spiritual leader of her people who, confusing the activity of the Spirit of God with the activity of the flesh, believes that she is drunken when she is in fact anguished. What suffering! She has no resource within herself. The world is hostile to her. Those who bear the Lord's name judge her and do not understand her. How can she eat and drink and rejoice when her soul's only desire has found no response? She does not desire this son for herself. She is entirely disposed to give him to Jehovah all the days of his life, to make of him a Nazirite for God. But what she needs is a sign of God's favor. What she needs is grace. Did God give her, the barren wife, this name in vain? Grace alone remains for her, and this is the point to which she must come. Eli has conscience sufficient, for after all he is a true servant of God, that the language of truth brings its weight to bear on him and causes him to reverse his first impression. He blesses Hannah on behalf of God. Go in peace, and the God of Israel grant thee thy petition which thou hast asked of him. Verse 17. Hannah's faith at once lays hold of grace even before receiving its effects. And the woman went her way and did eat, and her countenance was no more as before. Verse 18. This assurance of faith is enough to strengthen her heart and fill her with a joy that is visible to all. It is not enough for her that she has found joy and rest after anguish. What will she return to God for such a great blessing? She will render what she promised him in verse 11, the complete consecration of her son, a true separation for him. When her request is answered by the gift of Samuel, she does not withdraw her offer, that he may appear before Jehovah and there abide forever. This humble wife of Elkanah the Levite brings a costly sacrifice to the Lord: 3 bullocks and 1 ephah of flour and a flask of wine, but one that is nothing in comparison to the gift of Samuel. She parts with her only son, given her by God himself, from him whom she had asked of God, thus showing that for her God was more precious than this son whom she had so desired. May we have such faith. In order to manifest it, God puts our hearts to the test. Just as with Hannah, this trial will not be an occasion of joy at the beginning, but rather of bitterness and sorrow. But then, it will bear the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who are exercised by it.